So good morning, everyone. Those of you that don't know me, I really do enjoy what I do, and I like to make sure that we try to keep this first HR topic pretty lighthearted, a little bit fun, and then what I'm going to ask any of you to do that you have specific topics you would like to hear about later, because this is not the first time that I will be speaking here. Tish, if you would raise your hand, please. Yep, that's Tish. She will take any topics down that you guys would like to know about in further detail for further talks throughout this series. Okay, so this first one, I think we're just going to keep it a little bit light, and we're going to talk about the 10 ways to get yourself sued. So we'll take HR, and we're going to kind of work in reverse. So if you relate to any slide, please do not raise your hand. I do not need to know that. Okay, so here we go. So you're going to spend less time screening your candidates. So how many of you have employees currently? How many of you? Okay, good. So when you guys have employees, everybody has what they consider their best practice, right? So you put out a job, or we all have our own systems of how we go recruit our employees, but we want to make sure that we verify experience. We want to make sure that we are hiring what we consider to be the best employee. So if you don't take the time to do your due diligence at the beginning, are you really setting yourself up for success to try to gain the best employee? Or am I going to just take somebody's word for it because I like them? Right? So a lot of small businesses, it's actually not uncommon for small businesses as we start, right? We all start with this dream, and then we hire, sort of hire, unofficially hire our cousin or our brother or our best friend or our whatever. And then that works till it doesn't, okay? And you guys, don't worry about it at this table. I see your faces. It's pretty normal. It's pretty standard. And then what'll happen is there's always a transition. And then it's like, okay, well, we've got to get a little bit more realistic, and okay, we've learned something from that, and now we're going to go out and do this next step. So number 2, we're going to hire the wrong people, okay? So to hire the wrong people, that's fairly easy to do, right? Because 1, we didn't screen them right, or 2, does anyone recognize lazy or the lies or the late? Yeah. Yeah, you think that's our best hire is the lies? Thank you, Kim. So when we hire the wrong people, really what we really want to focus on, again, is making sure that we define what our culture, and I'm not really big on buzzwords, but unfortunately that's kind of where we are today, is, we all decide what type of culture we want in our business. So we decide if it's going to be upbeat, we decide if it's like quiet, we decide if it's going to be professional, we decide if it's going to be engaging. So there's all these things that we decide. Most of that is based on our personalities and what our vision is for where we're going. So if you guys do not hire the correct people to fit that culture, it's not going to be a successful relationship, right? It would be like putting me in a banker. I can be a banker as long as you don't make me touch money. Okay, so, but I can talk, I can visit, I can build relationships, but I am not good with money at all, not my thing. So, so again, making sure that you hire people that are going to fit what it is that you're trying to get with your goal. So I'm not physically fit, so and active. I don't particularly enjoy like running or exercising and all those things. So I'm probably not going to be a good hire for Olga to teach a class, right? So, okay. So now this one, date your subordinate. Yes, if you really want to get in trouble, that's your best bet. Now, I'm not talking about your business partner or who you're in business with. That's totally different. I'm talking about, it would be like, let's think. I could date, not me. I don't have any men working. Colin, let's say you guys had a graphic designer in there and you decided, you know what, I really like you. She's a 10. So, but you supervise her and 3 other people. You schedule her, right? You also evaluate her. Is that really smart? Is that smart for you guys to then at that point be having them as an employee under you? No, probably not. Why do you think that would not be wise? If she gets mad, you're in trouble. That's exactly right. So basically, when you break up with her, it's not going to go well for you. That's why, right? Because what happens is, and really, we don't deal with this a tremendous amount in this particular county. I only see it maybe once or twice a year, which seems like a lot maybe to some of you, but with what I do, that's actually not that frequent. So what will happen is business owners say, but we started this business together, we started going on, and then next thing you know, things have shifted. We've grown as a company, and then, or we've hired somebody new in, and I've decided that I'm attracted to them, and we start dating, and then guess what? When one of two things happens, their work performance is no longer where it needs to be. Does it feel good for somebody that you're in a personal relationship with to be told they're not doing well? Right? You get cut off. And it's not good, because then next thing you know, you're mad that they're mad at you. It just turns into this vicious cycle, and there's phone calls that get starting to made and accusations, right? So just don't put yourself in that particular position. I would highly discourage it, okay? So turn your back on harassing behavior. If you look over on the slide, you'll see anything that's considered harassing is actually anything considered unwelcome. So a lot of people don't understand that. So for example, some people are just naturally flirty, right? Some men think it's fun. I mean, I have been accused of being naturally flirty. I do not think that I am. I consider myself a people person, not flirty. But some people have said that. It's anything unsolicited, anything that's repeated, offensive, intimidating. So what you really want to be thinking about is, even though you might make a joke in the workplace, you have to be aware of who is also in that workplace space that can overhear it. Now, we all, again, remember when we talked about culture? I am certainly not a stick in the mud, and I don't think that it's not, if like Jessica and Ron, they work together. You guys, I believe, are in a relationship together, so that's totally different, right? Because they work together and they are in a relationship, so their jokes and their whatever is going to be fine. Now, if I am up here and Sam decides that he wants to know if I don't know, he might tell me a joke that's of a sexual nature. Would I care personally as Leanne Reynolds? No. I would probably laugh about it and then go tell 4 people. However, if I was not Leanne Reynolds, I might care, right? So I'll give you an example of something that recently happened with my husband. He came home and was sharing with me that there was somebody who had gotten in trouble because they had, Sports Illustrated apparently still puts out a swimsuit edition. Okay, so I was not aware of that. And somebody had taken one of the ladies that was in there and put it in their work locker. And they got in a lot of trouble because in their work locker, there was a pinup of somebody in a swimsuit. So my husband came home and asked me if I thought that was fair. And of course, I gave zero opinion about it because I don't have a lot of opinions. But I felt like I didn't want to get involved in it because his HR person is one of my really good friends. So I actually said he should just talk to her. So anyway, but that's how the level that you have to actually be aware of. So a lot of places, like if you're Matt and you work at Banner Bank, and you probably have rules about what people can have out or what's appropriate because it's a public place. We're very careful at BBSI as well about what we have out. But if you have a private office in the back, no one ever goes in there. You do your own thing, that's fine. My point in having this particular thing up is the fact that harassing behavior is not exactly what we all used to consider it to be. It's not just touching. It's not just asking somebody out. It's what we might have exposed somebody to through print. It might be a joke. It might be something that we are showing that we found on social media. It's things like that we don't think about. So again, just make sure, I'm trying to think, Tish, we were talking yesterday about also like humiliating, like poking fun of somebody, right? When we were talking about this. So you know how sometimes there's that person that is kind of always like the butt of all jokes, right? Because they're just that person. So remember how it says unwelcome, unsolicited, or if it's repeated? If they find that offensive, it's offensive. That's the definition. So you might not find it offensive. You might actually find it hilarious, and they found it funny until year 2 or month 10 or however, whatever it is. So just being aware of that is very helpful for you as a business owner, because, you know, again, most people don't go to you first, although they should, and tell you that they don't like it. They start making phone calls. That's the reality of it. So a lot of times you don't actually know that there's a problem until it's beyond, you know, what was easily fixed. Okay, so step 5, again, to help yourself getting in a little trouble. Don't bother to write up employees for misconduct or performance. So do you see how it says up there that this is an employee evaluation for your toddler? Sometimes it feels that way with certain employees, right? You know, you just can't rein them in, you can't do whatever. But if you don't do anything to correct the action, it actually comes back to you as a business owner. Because the expectation is very clear in the state of Oregon. The expectation is that employees have the right to know what is expected of them. So that goes back to those basic tactical type things that no business owner really worries about, again, until after it's late. Did any of you go into business going, hey, I can't wait to have an employee handbook or a job description? Because I'm not thinking any of us went into business going, hey, let me start that process, right? It's more of an afterthought, or because someone told you you should, or your tax advisor told you, or maybe you met with an attorney to get yourself set up and they said, oh, by the way, do this, right? So one of the things that I would encourage everybody to do once you are starting to get your employees, get yourself strategically aligned and have your handbook set up to the fashion that would hold people accountable to what your expectations are. There are certain things in the state that, you know, the Oregon, again, just like federal, there's federal laws and there's state laws once you have employees. I'm not going to get into all those. I could be here all day. But we are going to talk a little bit about, so for example, if I have, you know, a handbook, I need to establish a work week, right? Because how can I tell somebody that they cannot work overtime, but what's overtime in Oregon? You might know as a business owner, but does an employee know? Is it over 8 hours in a day? It's 40 hours a week. But how do you determine your work week if you don't have it established? So if I don't have it in writing saying my work week starts at Monday at, you know, midnight or 12:01 and then goes through Sunday night or vice versa, I could easily say, no, I didn't calculate your work time because I paid you out last week through this, and it becomes this moving target, right? So don't put yourself in that. Or, you know, a lot of times employees also make some bad decisions, right? They make bad decisions. So if you don't do something that's going to establish and acknowledge that it was a bad decision and help them have this conversation and then give them some opportunity to change that behavior, then you have actually not been considered to have encouraged any performance improvement, right? So a lot of times, I'll give you a little bit about who I am in my history. Towards the end, I wanted to make sure that I got the information out to you first, rather than talking about me. But for performance or misconduct, a lot of times employers don't want it's uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable for people to have that conversation with somebody that especially is their friend. Going like, hey man, you know, it's really important, and our last order was this, it cost me A, B, and C, and I am really not sure about that. So I spend a tremendous amount of time coaching a lot of our clients on better ways to do that, because I can tell you a few things over, you know, just doing what I do. When I have to call BOLI to help one of my clients get out of any potential hot water, the very first question I'm asked is what policy did they violate, and what did they do? What did your employee do, or employer or client do to help them improve? So when I just say, hey, they were consistently late, you know, they consistently turned out a bad product, I consistently had customer complaints, yeah, you know, things like that. That doesn't look good when I have nothing in writing. And it does good when I've held no standard up to them, and then also reinforced it or provided any opportunity for, you know, them to make a change. So just make sure that you guys are aware that there are performance stuff, and sometimes it's very uncomfortable. I got a text yesterday, I was with Matt, and it says, I need some guidance on terminating an employee. It's very hard for business owners to do that, especially with the relationships that you guys have developed over the time. So a lot of times I get that lucky task. It's fun. So failing to terminate an employee who needs to be fired, what does that do to your environment? Toxic. Yeah, it always goes down. What does it do to your peace? Yeah, that's right. So eventually, again, firing is the worst, in my opinion. Hiring and firing are my two least favorite parts of what I do. The hiring, even though I know it should be happy and joyous, it's always the gamble, right? Because nobody comes out and shows you their worst side when they're trying to get hired. So you are going on this belief in this system that everybody is who they present themselves to be, and you kind of just go, okay, well, I'm going to do my best to make sure an educated, decision. So I would say your best practice is slow to hire, but very quick to fire. Because if you do your due diligence in the beginning, you tend to set yourself up for success down the road. Because it is easy to take the new shiny penny that comes in front of you and looks fabulous and has this energy that just screams at you, or is into some of the same things that you're into, and you have a bond, or you find out you guys have the same friends. It's very easy to find a reason that this is a good match. So then you go in there and you say, oh, okay, this is working. And 3 months in, after the honeymoon stage, you find out, well, yeah, they always start out great, right? But pretty soon, they're not so hot. So what happens? How long are you going to keep them going on? They're very expensive, but also turnover is very expensive. When you guys turn over an employee, I actually run a lot of numbers for clients to let them know what their turnover percentages are and what the actual value cost of that is, because nobody thinks about that. They look at pure wages as the only expense to employee turnover, and it's not. So I very much encourage all of you to make sure that you are very slow to hire and very quick to fire. There is no reason to keep that anchor on you. And if you need help with that, call me. Okay, so step 7, when we are talking about what happens when we are in that process of terminating, when we don't learn the facts and we take what we've been told, right? That is this is the one that actually gets the most people that I work with in trouble. So they get very upset. So for example, let's say somebody comes to me Colin comes to me and says, oh, hey, so-and-so borrowed the computer and over the weekend, and then they came in on Sunday and ran 400 copies and made booklets for something that they're into, whatever, right? And I'm like, what? That's stealing. That's like the first thing, because you've used all of my stuff and it's for your personal. So I go to this employee on Monday morning. I'm like, you know what? I can't believe you did that, and I'm done. That's stealing. You're out. We're done. Have I done anything to engage that employee, to give them an opportunity at all to explain anything? Okay. If I give them that opportunity to explain, does it change my mind? It could. It may not, but I still gave them the opportunity. Okay, so again, it goes right back to the expectation that you have to put your best foot forward as well. I think the best way that, one of the things that we've always done at BBSI is I expect every interaction to be a 5-star interaction. So when it's not, I tend to go 0 to 60 irritated, because I do really go out and try to make sure that my interactions with everybody is a top-notch interaction, that it's positive, that it's professional, that it's whatever. But when you don't give that back to me, I really shouldn't allow some people to bring me down, but I do. We're not perfect. And so just make sure that you are very much aware of who you are and how you react, because that will actually, a lot of us want to knee-jerk, right? Reactors. We just go like, oh, maybe somebody takes product off the shelf and they're not supposed to, right? Maybe that's what's going to happen to you. So again, is there a solution? Are they so great that you want to say, hey, let's talk about what this is? And why did you do this? And do you write them up? Remember when we talked about not writing people up? Do you give them an opportunity to pay you back? Do you, let me ask you this, can you say, hey, just take it out of my next paycheck? I know it's $28 that I just took, but can you take it out of their next paycheck? That's right, the answer is no. No. You cannot. So I know it's super easy for us want to do because it seems logical. True? It seems logical to be able to do that. And I'm not saying that there's not a way around it, but I just can't walk up to you and say, hey, take that out of my next check, we're good. There's actually steps and processes that have to happen. And they actually have to sign something and acknowledge it and let you know what date to take it out and how many payments to use. And there's this whole process. Yeah, I know. I know. I love it when my clients call up after the fact and say things like, or actually Tish gets the calls. She'll get the call and they'll say, oh, hey, take X out of this next payroll because I let them have a set of tires. Yeah, no. And then inevitably what will happen, we'll get the call that says, oh, I'm letting employee B go, but they owe me for tires and some tool. So take it out of their final check. Guess what? No. So what we tend to do, because I am not about telling you how to run your business, I'm about best practice. What I'll say is we actually can't do that. If you would like to run that final paycheck on your own, feel free, right? Because I can't have that run through me because my job is to protect you and me. So that's how that works. So, okay, firing people who are on a protected leave of absence. Let's say that we have an on-the-job injury. Maybe I twisted my ankle walking up the stairs. And so, right, that's workers' comp. Because everybody that has employees has workers' comp, right? That's a protected leave. So if you decide to fire me while I'm on protected leave, that's not good at all. And you will lose 100% of the time, okay? So there are very...
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
So say I have a teller that twists their ankle, they're on protected leave, but in banking there is always like that, we always require them to be off at least a week throughout the year, so if they are stealing money, all of a sudden they're gone on protected leave and we go check their cash drawer. Guess what? It's short. And they're gone just because they're on protected leave. I can still fire them.
Absolutely, because the thefty part of that makes that a fireable offense. The workers' comp has nothing to do with it, so we call that a but for.
But they could say,
But for, you got fired but for because of this. That's what we call that, okay? So yes, there are circumstances about it, but as a general rule, if you're in workers' comp, please don't fire your people. Please don't squeeze them out. Please don't try to make it so difficult for them to come back, right? That's not going to end well for you. So also I have up there, I think, a little bit about stalking and domestic violence. For those of you that have six employees or more in the state of Oregon, you are actually under that law. So basically, it's not just, so if I decide that I want to start stalking Matt, Matt has rights and protections, right? So so Matt actually has protections that he can leave work for and different things like that. We also, as employers, have a responsibility to make sure that we are doing things at work to make people feel safe that are in that type of violation. And it's not only for the employee; it can also be against their children, right? Or there's a list of family members that it would apply to. And then at that point, if any of you are experiencing that and you have questions, reach out, because that's kind of a personal or private thing. But then also Olga's place, you guys do defense classes, right? So we should be sending people to you as well for that. That's right. Okay. So if you pay employees improperly, see, you don't want people to come to work and think they're going to get pennies, right? Although we'd like to pay them that, it would be great for our profits. But a lot of times what happens, and actually before I go, what was your question, Jason?
What if you have like habitual offenders getting hurt?
Okay, so that's actually not uncommon. It goes back to your coaching and what your expectations are. So setting the standard to begin with becomes your key piece. So you probably have somebody, or what are they, is it an average of a year? Is it like an annual thing, like every year you know they're going to be gone?
I don't know. We haven't had that problem yet.
Okay.
In our industry, there's a lot of habitual injuries.
Sure.
And I know there's people out there that kind of look to get hurt.
Yeah. Okay, so let me tell you a story about my career that actually will help you with that. So you know how everybody has that like one story that just sticks, or that one employee that probably stuck with you, or maybe you were the employee and you worked with somebody at that in a previous world. So I had this particular person, and every year it was something. The chair moved and it was a back strain. I mean, and this is an office environment. We're talking a workers' comp code of 8810, the lowest risk that you could possibly have, but every year we managed to have a claim. And after like the third or fourth one, I was somewhere and I was approached by someone who informed me that they wanted to know when they could come to work. And I said, well, why not? We're not hiring. What are you asking for? and they informed me in a joking way that the employee that was constantly hurt was thanking me publicly for the Harley and the swimming pool and the, okay? So does that feel good to me? My knee-jerk reaction is, oh, I so can't wait till Monday, right? That's the knee-jerk reaction. But you don't get to operate that way, okay? It's very, actually, believe it or not, it's very rare for people to be that habitual person. I've only had one in my 26-year career, not decades. And so anyway, I've actually only had one in 26 years that actually was that habitual person. And so what you have to do is you really have to start establishing your criteria to begin with, and you have to manage to that. And so it really is then moving them back. And the one thing moving them around to where a lot of times what I'm gonna say, what I see employers do is they say, well, I'll just let them have it off, right? Because they're hurt and we wanna let them rest and we wanna do this. I actually kind of, in most cases, and I'm not gonna say 100% of the time, because nothing in HR is black and white and 100%. But I would encourage most employers to bring them back in to do work that they don't necessarily want to do. It is amazing to me how quick people heal when they're in my office shredding and scanning. It is. When they're out working and they're out producing and they're out doing all this stuff and they're like, oh man, and I'm like, yeah, no, just come to the office. I'm gonna make sure, if you're getting paid, because you're going to get paid on workers' comp, then you're gonna work. Because the worst thing that you can do is reward people. I do believe workers' comp has its purpose. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely believe in it. But not when it's gonna be used as I get to sit around and do nothing, right? So again, if you ever get into that situation, make sure that you're very quick to establish the guidelines, pay attention, encourage people to come back, because every time you go to the doctor for workers' comp, you come back with either a clearance or a restriction or a light duty or a whatever. So maybe I cannot perform my typical duties. I almost assure you everybody would be physically capable of scanning and filing and shredding. So, and you know what, if they refuse that work, that actually gives you the upper hand. So that's why I always encourage that. Yeah. And not to be done in a punitive manner, folks. That's not what I mean. Okay? All right. So pay employees improperly. So a lot of times we'll get folks that say, oh no, they're salary. We don't need to pay them overtime. You can't just make somebody's salary. That's actually not okay. So a lot of times they'll say, oh, but they're my manager and they're salary. There's actually thresholds that you have to go through, and it's called a duties test that you have to be able to pass to say that that person is actually legitimately a salaried employee. And a lot of times small businesses want to pay people salary, and I get it. Don't get me wrong, I totally get it, because then you don't have to pay overtime, right? You don't have to pay overtime. So it makes sense. And again, it's great till it's not. So if you fire me because we were dating in 6 months and you made me salary, but I worked an extra 5 hours a week, on average, you owe me that money. And then when you don't want to pay me, it doesn't get pretty. Okay? So just make sure that you guys are aware of that. Also, what are some of the other things that we see a lot, Tish? An undefined work week, right? Because that's also another way to not pay people appropriately for your overtime.
Not keeping accurate records.
Yep. Time. Here's another thing. You as an employer, I turn in my timesheet and I say that I worked 8.25 hours on this day and I worked 8.50 hours on another day in the same work week. And you've told me 1,000 times I'm not authorized to work overtime. So I take your time card and I cross off the 0.25 and I cross off the 0.50, and then I pay you for your 40 hours. Is that all right? No. Happens every day. So, so just make sure that you are aware of that. And so what happens? What should your next step be if that occurs? And you receive that time card. What do you do?
As the owner?
Yeah, as the business owner.
Pay it out.
You pay it out. You talk to the employee. You click you establish the clear expectation, and you document that you talked to the employee somewhere. Because I can tell you this, if you didn't write it down, it didn't happen. I don't care how many times you say, oh no, I talked to them I know for a fact I talked to them on this day. I talked to them because I know for a fact it was Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I talked to them this day. But when I ask you for information and I say, okay, great, just give me their file and let me take a little quick view at it, and there's nothing in there but glowing references because we didn't want to write anything down on a reference and we wanted to keep their spirits high, you can't do that, okay? So just make sure that you're all aware of that. Don't allow employees to take lunches and breaks. So do you guys know what the guidelines are in Oregon?
6 hours should go on.
Yeah, so I broke out, here's the scale. So a lot of times, this is the number one question that I actually get here in Roseburg. My guys don't really take breaks because they go outside and smoke kind of whenever they want. That's the number one thing I get. Does that count as your break? You don't have to give any smoke breaks. You have to give these breaks, rest breaks, right? Okay, so the answer is no. It doesn't qualify. So if you are an hourly employee, you actually have, this is the guideline that the state holds you to. So you need to do your due diligence and put your best effort forward to make sure that your folks are adhering to this. So there's a couple examples here that, again, I'll just kind of use examples of things that I get calls on a lot. My guy wants to, he came in 10 minutes late, he's going to skip his first break and we're going to call it good. Yes or no? Okay, a little bit of a split in the room. The answer is no. Okay, so yeah, you absolutely don't want to allow that. How about if I want to skip my lunch, but I want to leave a little bit early? Can I do that? No, you guys, you cannot do that, right? Again, our heart and our human side says, well, why not? What's the big deal? They're just trying to manage their day and we want to be accommodating. I get it. I get it. But an hourly employee, and I'm talking hourly employees, I'm not talking your salaried employees, the ones that you've done your due diligence and they've passed their duties test and they're, all those things. I'm talking your hourly employees, this is the expectation. And again, no issues until there's a problem. Nobody is ever coming to you saying, hey, you really shouldn't let me take 4 smoke breaks. No one is ever going to come to you and say that. But the second they lose their job over even a choice that they made, it's very quick for somebody to turn around and say, you guys never gave me my breaks. I was supposed to have these breaks. So just be aware that sometimes out of our kindness, we make decisions that we never intended to come back and bite us, but they sometimes do, right? So just be aware of that. So it's all just about your best practice and what you guys do. How am I doing on time? Okay, so here's culture. So those are your top 10 reasons, all right? Those are your top 10 reasons of really how to get yourself in some serious trouble here.
So on your last slide then, if somebody, because that happens a lot, that people say, I want to leave early, so I'll just not take lunch.
Yeah.
You just tell them, I'm sorry, you can't do that.
No, you say you may absolutely leave early. Just make sure that you reflect that appropriately on your time card.
As long as they're under that 6 hour.
Correct. But if you're talking about a full-time employee, yeah.
If they're working hours at 6 hours, they have to take
So do you see where it says down there at the 6 hours, 1 minute, 10, and then that's where they go to number rest 2? Okay, so here's the other question I just actually got yesterday. How long are breaks? How long? Good. What? Yeah, they're 10. Did you guys know that? That there's actually a number? No.
Policies at companies are usually 15.
Right. So you have the choice, but the minimum is 10. Okay? Is that 10 minutes paid?
Yes.
Absolutely. Is that 15 minutes paid?
Yes.
If you chose it that way, you're paying for 10 no matter what.
I was just going to say, isn't it 15 for a minor has to have a 15-minute break?
Yeah, minor laws are going to be a little bit different, and the minor laws, if any of you here use minors for anything in the summer, your kids' friends, whatever, there's actually other laws that govern them, and thanks for bringing that up, Jessica, because the other things that govern them are even things that they can operate. So let's say that I want to hire a minor to make this beautiful banner. If they're using certain machinery, there's actually laws that say that they can't even touch that, right? So if you guys are ever going to hire minors, be very aware of what the minor laws are. It's broke down by age 16, 17, and 18-year-olds, okay? So make sure that you know that. Go ahead, Savannah.
It's really, really common in our industry for servers and bartenders to say, I don't want to take a break because I'm losing money. Is that something
Yes.
It is?
Absolutely. Have I read your handbook yet? I'm thinking I haven't. So I don't know what your policy is on your handbooks, but I will look at that and I will give you a better, clearer answer and guidance on that. But yes, the answer to your question is yes. No, you really do. And I mean, again, does it seem ridiculous that you have to write somebody up for not taking time off work? Doesn't that seem crazy in today's world? But if you, again, my job is best guidance for you as a business owner. It's not to be the most popular. I mean, I hate it too. And I was, you know, I'm trying to think if I was ever an hourly employee in my entire life. I don't believe that I was. No, I think I've always, even my first job was salaried, but I don't know what that's like to have to stop what you're doing and take a break, because I work when I work, right? That's just certain people have that, like, you know, you just go. I am here at 6 o'clock, 6:30 this morning. I will run like the Energizer Bunny until about 7 o'clock tonight. Then I will crash and I will start all over doing the same thing tomorrow. I don't know how to stop and take a break. Now I do stop and take lunch because I eat with a client every single day. So I do know that I at least do that for myself. I'm not thinking that's the most healthy. And I know Blue Zone people would tell you that's really bad. But that's the reality of my world. And so just make sure that even if that's your world, that you still take care of the employees that work for you.
So, is it required for us to enforce if they take 10 minutes?
Yes.
If you've been here 6 hours, you gotta go
Yes.
for your 10 minutes, or can
It's after, no. The 10 minutes is at 6 hours. They need to have a rest period, which is a minimum of how long? 30 minutes. So every 2 hours after being there, if they came in at 6 by 8, yeah, they need a break. Yep. To protect you, they need a break. What's best for them?
options there, but do we have to say, like, you need to go take a 10
Yeah. If they're not doing it,
I'm here to relieve you.
yeah, or you just send them a clear expectation. This doesn't have, again, remember guys, I'm not about punitive. I'm really not, even though I'm kind of making a joke in light of all this stuff. I'm really just about having the conversation first. So I would be like, hey, listen, I just found out that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I need to make sure you're doing it so we're all on the same page. If you, every 2 hours, you take a 10-minute break. Then I would follow that up in some sort of writing, whether it's an email, a text, and I'd make sure that I have a copy of it, okay? And I would just be like, hey, just to wrap this up, this is what I'm saying. Don't forget to do it. We really want you to get your breaks. Thanks for everything you do. Good job. Move on, okay? Doesn't have to be negative. It's just all in how we spin it. But sometimes our negativity comes because we're irritated or frustrated, so it doesn't sound like that's where you are, so that's awesome.
There are some jobs where you may be in the middle of a very important event.
Yep,
Where it's 2 hours is up, there is no way that you
correct.
work in the emergency room or the hospital, that all things break down.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So again, so we're not talking your ER doctor, right? That's going to be, or the helicopter guide's not going to land the helicopter to take his break. We're not talking those folks. We're talking your standard hourly people. I mean, Jessica, are you going to leave somebody in the escape rooms and not any help? Just to, you know, I'm just saying, you might. I don't know if you have cameras that might be hilarious. So anyway, so yeah, there is a logic to this. Also, for example, would it be okay if I am the only one here? Let's say Sam and I are the only two in the building, and Sam had to leave to go to the bank. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 2 hours and 17 minutes. I better take a break.
Yeah.
And yet we've got customers in here. Would that be logical? Would that be okay? No,
It's
right?
not about monitoring it, it's about setting the expectation.
Correct.
There's
Exactly. But right. So again, then you also can get to that flip side where you're like, oh, well, you told me I had to, you know. So just again, it's all about the culture and the communication style, which is why I say make sure that you understand what that looks like in advance so that you hire to it, you train to it, you manage to it, okay? So here's why culture is so important. You're going to take a look because our culture is basically our perception. We all have a different history. We all look through different lenses, right? So today my lenses might be rosy and cheery, and maybe something happens in my world and they're a little grayer, a little dingier, okay? So we all have bad days. That's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about your culture. We don't want it to fluctuate. We want it to establish. Be established. We want your handbook to be to that. We want you to operate to that. We want you to hold yourself to core values to that. We want you to talk about that with your teams or your employees. We want you to understand why it's important and how we make choices how we treat a customer, how we answer the phone, how we show up. Okay? Same thing. It also then, what might be important to me may not be important to Colin. But if Colin doesn't own the company, Colin gets to adopt what's important to me, right? So that's the reality of where it's at. So I'm saying you guys actually have the opportunity to do something fantastic with your companies. Make sure that you do it, right? And hold people to the standard of that. So, you know, again, we don't need to talk about culture. So here's what employees really want. Okay, this is something that we've actually been talking about a lot because we represent about 89 different companies right today. Will be 101 coming up very soon. So what employees really want? They want ownership of work. Remember the days of it was like you stood over there and all those types of things? That's really not about that as much. They like some flexibility. And again, that's up to you to decide what that flexibility is. For some of us, it makes sense to allow people to work their own hours. The office hours for me are, I think, I pretty much want the phones answered from about 8:30 to 4:30. But Tish, what time do you go into work?
Anywhere between 6 and 6:30.
Yeah, 6 to 6:30, because that's why I am flexible about that, because that's what works for Tish. Does that make sense? Okay, so there are areas that we can be flexible in because it makes sense in our companies, and there are areas that we cannot be flexible in, and that's okay. But if you have the opportunity to be a little bit flexible and have conversate with your employees to figure out what actually makes them tick, that's good. There are other people, going home Fridays is very important to you. Yes, she likes to go home early on Fridays. Do I care? No. No. Because she's in at 6 o'clock every week. Do I really care? No. I'm a stroll in at 9-ish after visiting and having coffee with people. I mean, so, or 10, or yesterday was 2. I don't even know. So, okay. Okay, so they want a stable environment. It's really, really disheartening for employees to hear, we're gonna have a hard time making payroll, right? Believe it or not, that doesn't make them feel warm and fuzzy, okay? Or when we talk about sales being down, or this is gonna happen, what they hear is, do I have to find a new job? Do I have to find, how's this gonna impact my family? How's this gonna do that? So that's what they hear. It does not feel good to always be wondering if I'm gonna have a job and it doesn't feel good. And it's not right? I mean, literally, when we talk about just human behavior to human behavior, it's not right for people to have to live in that. So making sure that you have a stable environment. Again, we always have that that key employee, maybe the one or two that we kind of talk to, been like, dude, we lost this big client. This is what's going to happen. Well, if that person that you might have that relationship with gets all freaked out or knows that maybe somebody else in the team that would impact them differently, they might just want to go help that person and say, hey, I heard that you might want to start thinking about looking for a job. Things are getting a little slim around here. So again, that doesn't help with this, right? Because now everybody's making assumptions, drawing conclusions, and building on something that's just not accurate because we said the wrong thing to the wrong person. And not purposely. I mean, we really were just kind of venting. Because if I lost a client, I mean, I might be like, Tish, this is terrible. Like, what? Tish knows that doesn't mean our doors are going to shut, but it does. It could. I mean, if we were down at 2 clients and you lose 50% of your clients, that's not good. So again, it's just about where you are in your growth cycle as well. Go ahead, Erica.
A long time ago, I heard the employee-boss type relationship needs to be that you need to be their friend, but they can't be yours.
Correct.
So they know that they can always come to you, but you never go to them.
Correct. It's a very good practice. Yeah, very good practice. It's the same thing like when I do. I'm a business owner advocate. My job is to advocate for you and give you best practices. But I'm never going to come to you and talk about BBSI. It's just not going to happen, right? Because my job's not about BBSI with you. My job's about you. So that's why. But I think that's excellent. That's a great way to do it. And again, be careful how much you get involved in their lives, guys. Do you want to hear about their divorce, their last date? Do you really want to hear about this? So again, you have to decide what that's going to look like. Because the more information you have, the more things that put a moving target on you, or you make decisions because of it. Okay, so just make sure that you're aware of that. Compensation becomes key. Again, people really won't leave for $1. Okay, in this economy right now, people will leave for $1 to go to the next highest dollar. And right now, as we stand. But as a whole, people will take a little bit less money for the right environment and the right fit. Okay, so just make sure that you're aware of that. Advancement opportunities, again, that also depends on the individual. Not 100% of all employees need advancement, but you might have that one or two, that one, usually one, that thinks, hey, I want to be this next level, or teach me more, or do this. You never know if you're actually training up your next competition. You never know that, but that's the reality of it. So just make sure that you guys are at least aware. Sometimes people advancement doesn't necessarily always mean up a ladder. It also just means changes. So maybe today I'm a server, but tomorrow I want to be a bartender. Okay? I don't know in the scheme of the restaurant business if there's a hierarchy, but maybe it's just in changing what I want to do. So letting people have that opportunity to express a desire for change, it's actually okay. And encourage it. You don't have to always say yes, yes, yes. Oh, great, let me see what I can do. It's not about that. It's about the conversation. And then guiding it, hearing it, and asking questions. Okay? Was there a last one? Oh, respect. Yeah, it's a good thing for just life. We don't need to go into that. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit just kind of about BBSI. So I'm a human resource management company. This is actually what I live by. This is posted on my wall, right? This is posted on the wall. This is what we hire to. This is how I live my life every single day. It's how I present with clients. The scrappiness doesn't mean that I'm, let's box and feisty. It doesn't mean that. It really, for me, what it means is that I'm able to adapt to where I'm at. So in other words, I can be here and kind of be lighthearted at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we can kind of laugh about this and have a good time. But I might be someplace else that I have to go home and change, put on my suit, right? And then go in and do that, and there would not be smiling. It would just be da-da-da-da-da. Then I might leave that place, and then I might be going to, I don't know, the tire shop, and I have my boots on. So again, that's what I mean scrappiness. I mean, I have to have the ability in a day to be able to adjust to any client that I have and show up for that client. So I have some clients who do expect a suit, and I have most of my clients, though, don't. They would rather just have this. So, somebody that they can talk to and somebody that they can say, hey, this isn't working, and how do I fix this because I totally screwed up, usually is what I get. So anyway, that is a little bit just kind of about who I am and what we do. And then this is right here, the areas that I stay focused on with our clients. So it's people and anything that involves with people. So that's like your human resource side. So basically, I always tell our clients, if it has to do with a human being, call me. That's all. It's very simple. I will never, ever tell you, that's not really my wheelhouse, and why don't you call somebody else? Because I will find the answer for you if I don't have it. Okay? We work on your products. I help make sure that you are also networked very well. Your processes. We actually have a team of 5 folks that our teams are very strong individuals. We have a full-time risk manager. We have a payroll manager. We have a recruiter. We have a human resource consultant, and we have a business manager and area manager. And they again, our team is 90% of the calls, I would say, come to me or to you, because we're the 2 areas that have to do with either the business owner or the employee. So it's going to be payroll and HR. So anyway, but a lot of times we sit down with businesses, we do strategic aligning, we look at your business plan, we look at your 3 times models. How are you going to stretch yourself in 10 years? What's your end goal? So we do all those types of things, but we really do have a wonderful format about just building the relationship and seeing where it goes. And starting out, I mean, nobody's going to share that information when I walk in and I say, hey, Colin, tell me what your 3-year plan is today. We don't even know each other. I don't even know anything about his business. How can I possibly have a conversation with him? So it's like, again, I'm about a long-term relationship. I'm not the person that you're going to call up and say, oh yeah, I need you for the next 6 months, and then you'll go away. I'm going to refer you to someone else, because that's really not what I'm about. So this is kind of just a quick overview about BBSI and what we do and how we do customize to each business. For example, what Sam uses me for, or what would need me for, is going to be completely different what Colin might need me for. So I adjust, again, that's that scrappiness piece, is adjusting to what the need is of the client. So I think, we don't really have, I mean, I suppose we have job descriptions. You know, we do have an official job description, but I really feel like they're just there. Okay, so, yeah, they're a guideline. There you go. So some of the other things that, again, we do, I do a lot of on-site trainings for companies. I actually am doing one right now for leadership training for one of our clients, and I go in every other Thursday, and they bring in all their management team, and we started with like A to Z for leadership, which is totally different than management, right? Okay, so it's just about leadership, because what happened is they're a company that really believes in promoting from within, so, which is awesome. But sometimes good employees don't make good managers without some skills training. So we kind of look at that. So there's just a lot of different things that we do. Here's some recommended reading books that I actually encourage every business owner to read. And I actually have one. Does anybody in here love to read, particularly love to read? Okay, so Tish, if you guys just do a little drawing or whatever, here's an emotional EQ book, which is amazing, and you can figure out how to give that out. What? Okay. Okay, so there you go. So again, these are just things that I really encourage you guys to do. We're actually going to start working on the emotional EQ a little bit more here in town. So anyway, there you go. You guys see me. I mean, a lot of you have seen me in other places. I'll be at the pub talk and different things. But how are we doing? Are we good?